Ready? Ready? Okay. It is 6:30. Tonight is the planning and zoning commission special meeting. We're in 101 South Main Street, Metro, Texas. City Council chambers. Announce that we do have a quorum present tonight. And we're going to start off jumping into our work session, which is to receive legal advice and guidance from the city attorney regarding the planning approval and denial process. So I guess I'll turn that over to Jeremy Page.
Yes.
Okay.
And so are we going into, okay,
Jeremy,
Go
can you
ahead.
go 1 second, please?
yes.
Sorry, they had court today.
All right.
Let's see if they changed this here. I'm so sorry. Let me just double check it one more time. Jeremy, would you say something?
Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Hold on.
That might be good though.
I have to log off and log back in. Showing up. I'm restarting the systems. Oh, here we go. I think. That part is. Maybe not. Jeremy, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, go
All
ahead.
right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Page. I work with Terry Welch, who is the city attorney for the city of Joshua, in case I haven't met all of you quite yet. And I know that today I'm here to kind of give you just a brief overview of the legal process for plating approval and denial. And I know some of this you've probably already heard, some of it you may have already learned about in previous training sessions, but just to go over it again one more time. So essentially what happened a few years ago, the state legislature passed a law and updated Chapter 212 of the local government code. And what they did was really drastically limit the ability or the actions that P&Z can take in when reviewing plats. And so with that, there are only 3 options allowed by state law, and that is to approve it as is, to approve the plat with conditions, or to deny the plat. If P&Z chooses to approve with conditions or deny it, the reasons must be specifically to do with either the state law requirements for plats or within the ordinances, the local ordinance regulations that have been passed by the city. And so anything else beyond the scope of state law regarding plats or the city subdivision ordinance or related regulation of plats cannot be a reason to deny it. And that's not because that's what I say, it's very straightforward in state law. Beyond that, if we were to deny it or to create conditions for approval, those reasons must be listed and given to the applicant. If we don't do that, we'll be in violation of state law. The developer could potentially submit a declaratory action in court against us, demand their attorney's fees, which the city would probably have to pay, and the approval, the development would still end up being approved and all of that. It just would end up costing the city a lot of money. And so I know it is tempting to consider lots of different reasons as to why plats should or should not be approved, but they must be specifically related to the requirements contained in state law or the local ordinances. And specifically with review of the plat that is on today's agenda, just looking over the background material, the city staff has indicated it meets all of the state and local requirements for the plat. Now that doesn't mean that you cannot still deny it or create conditions. If you have reviewed the plat and you see that maybe something is wrong with it, if there is, in fact, they do not meet one of these requirements that our city has or that state law has, then that is something certainly we can discuss at this meeting, and we would put it up for a vote. And if a majority approves to deny it or create conditions, then we would simply need to let the applicant know that in a letter, and we must be able to state those reasons. Otherwise, then we would just simply need to approve it. So I think that kind of covers everything just in a few minutes. So I'm open to any questions anybody may have about that.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
I guess one question I would have would be if there's something in violation of the actual planning district ordinance, that would be an acceptable reason to approve with a condition or deny.
So whether or not the development conforms to the planning, to the zoning, that would have been a zoning issue. And so that would have been something that we would have, that would have been previously discussed when approved. And so, for example, if it doesn't meet certain requirements, if you don't believe that for example, like if the roadways are not appropriate or this or that, that's really more of a zoning issue. It's really more of a technical requirement, whether or not the various requirements have been met. And so it's just very limiting, to be honest.
So specifically, if there were some lot widths in there where we know in the approved development district ordinance specified that all the lot widths were gonna be 65 feet, but there were lots below that. Is that a reason to request and say, hey, this is something we need to see changed in order to approve this?
Is that something that's actually, is that a hypothetical or is that actually a concern with this plat?
Lots where the lot widths specifically were not in compliance with the planned development district ordinance.
I think where that comes down, and he can tell us if we're right or wrong, is that this being a planned development, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so planned development is going to encompass where you will have some variances within that scope. As a grand scale, it has to meet a minimum threshold amongst all collectively. But there may be some a little bit smaller. That's why it's a planned development. If it's an individual, if we're platting individual plats in an area that's not a planned development, then that's, I think, where that absolutely comes into play.
But I think what you're referring to is compared to the plan development that was submitted and approved. Are you saying the preliminary plat has changed from that plan development that was submitted?
Well, I'm simply looking at the planned development ordinance that was passed by city council, and in there it says that the minimum lot width will be 60 feet. And I've identified there's, it's close. I'm just saying, when, we know that all of them in the planned development ordinance that was passed by city council is above 9,000 square feet lot size. There's a handful of lots that are below 60 feet. And I'm just saying, is that the spec for that planned development? What's the letter of the law, I guess, on that,
Right. One of my concerns, and I'm looking at section 6.8 R1, single family residential district, 6.8.1, general purpose and description. Below that is 6.8.2, area regulations. A, size of lots. Number one, minimum lot area, 10,000 square feet. Where does that come from?
Well, that's different. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Let me understand that regulation.
Let's see.
Let me see if I can help you. That is in the minimal requirements of the building, of the regulations for residential R1 lots. However, when a plan development is passed, or when a plan development is in place, that supersedes those regulations. And then you fall back to the PD for the
Okay.
standards.
Okay,
If this was a development that they did not apply for a plan development, if they were going to go strictly by the book, then they would all have to be 10,000 square foot lots. With the PD, you can change that up. It's a give and take. We ask for a few things, they give a few things. It's kind of a back and forth to come to an agreement, then that becomes the ordinance.
Okay, for that plan development.
For that specific development, that's correct.
But does your question still stand, or was that answered?
No, I think my question still stands because passed by city council, the plan development ordinance says the minimum lot width will be 60 feet. I misspoke earlier that it was 65.
Okay.
And I guess my question is, in our planning and zoning document, our typical minimum lot width is 75 feet, but we understand that this plan development district is going to be 60 feet. Ours does not say as measured at the building line. Is that typically the standard? That it's measured at the building line instead of the frontage, I guess?
Yes, it could be also measured from the build line.
Is that the foundation of the house?
Yes, correct.
And there's none of, the slab, if you will, of the house is not on the preliminary plat.
Correct, yes.
So it would be at the 25 foot.
What size home are those?
In the,
Can I ask a question?
We'll have the public forum here in just a minute. Let us hash through all this for just a little bit so we don't get sidetracked, and we'll come back to that. So I think, well, I don't know if I would assume it's off the survey. The survey and the lot lines or the pins are your lot sizes, and that's what's determined on this, not off your building line. So it should be off of the survey, which is part of your plat from the.
yeah, are those frontage lines where we're measuring, the front of the width of the lot is 75 feet? Is that, and then the lot may trapezoid out.
You may have some irregular shaped lots, and so sometimes you do have to account or use the measurement off the build line.
And then obviously in instances like cul-de-sacs where the frontage may be a radius, is that measured based on, I saw that there was a radius, length and a chord value on the cul-de-sac frontage lines?
Mhm.
Which one is actually used? I mean, I'm kind of imagining it's the chord
Which,
to measure the frontage, such as if you're looking at the actual plat, it was block 7, lots 5 and 6.
okay, and say it again.
So there were the values on there, I think they were like C28 and C29.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yes, sir.
And so if you go to I think it was, if I'm calling this off the top of my head when I was looking last weekend, so it had, the radius was 50 feet on block 7, lot 5, the length was 43.09, the chord was 41.77. Which one is actually used? Then we've got to go 25 feet back and measure at the building line.
Yeah, so you,
I'm nitpicking here just because I need, I guess I know I'm nitpicking, but I'm just, where's the basis for identifying what the frontage is of that actual lot?
correct, so that's a perfect example right there of a irregular shaped lot, so you couldn't go off of the frontage of the curb of the cul-de-sac or what you're talking about. And so you would go off the build line and the width, and I mean, it doesn't show it, but I'm pretty sure that it is the 60 plus.
Right, I just, it's not on there and we're trying to make sure that some of these are, I imagine that's something that we're kind of looking for. So in the case of, block 3, lot 9, where that one's coming in at 55 feet.
During the review process, and that layout was in the PD, and it should match exactly. So wherever we.
Yeah, because we have a letter from him.
He's on here.
Steve, and Steve is on here too, so. Steve, chime in if you need to.
All right, well, I was just wondering if it would help. The definition of lot width is in the zoning ordinance in Article 11. And it defines it as a horizontal distance measured between the side lot lines parallel to the front lot line and measured from the point on the building line that is closest to the front lot line.
Okay.
The problem with the plat is that he doesn't have the building line shown, at least on the copy I have in front of me here. He has, I don't think he has it shown anyway. Is it shown on the preliminary plat?
No, the build line is not.
Yeah, so it makes it, that's something that you could actually go in and measure if he had it drawn on there, but it looks like he's got utility easements on there, but not the building line. So that would have made it easier to check.
And these can still be added during the final planning stage, correct, Steve?
Yes,
Because it'll still meet the requirements set forth with the build line and the setbacks and according to.
We didn't put the building line on there because there's so many lines already. There is a typical example on the side, but
Yeah.
for a while, it gets to be hard to look at.
Hard to read, I understand.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm not trying to, I am trying to nitpick because I think it's important, but, just to make sure that everything is in accordance with the ordinance that was passed, so.
So are you asking if the PD was approved with there being errors in regards to the lot sizes according to that ordinance? Is that what you're referring to?
I'm just saying, yeah, that's what I'm thinking, and that's what I'm looking at, I'm seeing some lot frontage lines that are below that 60 feet median. Granted, it's only by a couple of feet, but it's below that 60-foot frontage, so does that technically meet the definition that we're asking?
An exception because I understand what you're asking.
We've already given them the exception from 75 to 60, and 60 is the bar now, so.
But when you go back to that, to the building lines, what we're measuring off of, the lot line will be wider than 60. Am I saying that correctly?
Potentially,
Because-
unless the lot is going this way or the other way, where it's getting narrower at the back, or if it's straight up and down
But-
vertical, you know.
Yeah,
You draw your imaginary line for, down the build line, and that's your,
But that's in the cul-de-sacs and
It's not just in the
Having-
cul-de-sacs, but
for the most part though.
there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 7 lots that were outside of the cul-de-sac that were below the 60 feet. One of them, I will say, it looks like it has a missing or incorrect dimension on it because it just looks out of scale.
I know we went through a very lengthy process of review with the city engineer, and there was a lot of back and forth where we were answering a lot of questions to make sure that they were comfortable that it met the city requirements. I can't speak to that. I'm sure Steve could.
Steve, are you still there, Steve?
Yes, I am. Yes, I was listening. I think I heard that comment. Normally, we would, if I had a question about that, I'd ask you to just resubmit it with the building line on there so I could check it. Because it's too difficult, too time consuming for me to go in and actually draw a building line on there myself. And you know where you want them. And then I could go back and just, using my PDF reader to just check dimensions. And if there was one that was close, I might raise a question about it. But I normally don't check lot width. I just focus mainly on the engineering, the civil engineering aspects of the drawing. So without the building line on there, though, I wouldn't have any way to check it anyway.
I guess
So is, Mr. Attorney, are you there?
Yes.
Is this a situation where one of the stipulations for approval could be that the final plat show the building line?
So if it is, again, a requirement in this, because I'm looking in the backup documents, the preliminary plat checklist. If we require plats to have that, then yes, because then that means this is not conforming to our requirements. But just from doing a quick look, I'm not sure if that is a specific requirement. And so it would really just kind of depend. And so if I don't know if the applicant is there, the applicant may say, oh yeah, that might be, we would be amenable to having those added on to it, because it does say that we can create conditions that are, quote, let me look that up again.
We definitely could. It's just on the preliminary plat, you show the contour lines and so many other on there that it's really hard to look at. And we don't have to put the contour lines on the final plat, so it makes it a little clearer. And we could definitely put that on include that on the final plat.
Which in general, though, the line has to be on the final plat anyway, has to meet the minimum standard to move forward.
Mhm.
So I mean, none of that would really, I mean, whether it's there or not, it wouldn't be able to pass whether it's drawn on there or not. It has to meet that criteria.
We'd be happy to provide data showing, at the build line, what those dimensions are in a separate exhibit.
So,
Without final plat, so.
and just to clarify, make sure I'm on the same page as everybody here. The ordinance you're reading from is the plan development ordinance passed by city council.
Yes, sir.
And you're saying in there, it says the minimum lot size, minimum frontage has to be 60 foot
Minimum lot width
In a
is
plan
60
development.
foot is 60 feet as measured at the building line.
at the building line.
Yes.
So that's the question, that when we just say we show the building line on the final plat, it has to be a minimum lot size of 60, because you're saying there's 8 or 9 lots that are not based on the frontage.
Based on the front.
Frontage, not the
correct.
building line.
Yes.
So,
I'm not aware of any that drop below. I know we worked on this for a long time to try to make sure we met the requirements. But I'll be more than happy to supply additional information with the final plat submittal to verify that and make everybody feel comfortable that we're meeting that ordinance.
Yeah, maybe a specific drawing showing the build lines and the widths, which seems to be the biggest question for this board.
That
But just for clarification, that's assuming something the city engineer reviews prior to this, to assume it's meeting the PD requirements
We'll get it to him.
as well.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's, again, a double check from what you're asking. So,
yes.
okay.
And
Our
I,
experience in other cities that gets checked during the review process. I thought it was checked on this one as well.
I think you could probably even make that part of your stipulation is that be provided on the plat and approved by the
Mhm.
city engineer. I think you can do that and be fine.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Yes, and also I do want to just make sure, because we're supposed to just be on a work session. We kind of delved into the particulars of the actual plat itself. So I just want to make sure we kind of wrap up the work session, quote unquote. And so before we start getting into any more discussions about the actual submitted plat that we're following the appropriate agenda item. But before that, I'm also fine with what we've been discussing about doing the condition, because we'll just need to cite that part of the development ordinance before and in the condition, so that we have a specific citation to it.
Any other questions regarding the work session for legal advice before we move on to the next item?
Sure.
No. No, good deal. All right. We'll move on. Thank you, Jim, for your time. Appreciate
Yes.
a little update, a little quick training there.
Yes.
Moving on to public forum, the Planning and Zoning Commission invites citizens to speak on any topic, however, unless the item specifically noted in this agenda, the Planning and Zoning Commission is required under the Texas Open Meeting Act to limit its response to responding with a statement of specific factual information, reciting the city's existing policy, or directing the person making the inquiry to visit with city staff about the issue. No commission deliberation is permitted, and each person will have 3 minutes to speak. I do have a couple people signed up to speak tonight. If you came later, you want to speak, if you would just fill out one of these forms and get it to our city secretary before you leave tonight. Eric Dimas, if you want to stand up, state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, Eric Dumas, topographic 4942 St. Regis Drive in Cleveland. I represent, I work for the company that's doing this, and we work a little hard on this to try to make sure it does meet the requirements. We definitely can provide additional information. Be happy to provide additional information to make sure that that's well known that we're meeting the requirements that were agreed to by the city council. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Just like to ask for your approval on this plat.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. If any questions, when we go to the discussion item, we'll let you know. Thank you. Mary Justine.
Mayor Justine, I live at 1304 County Road 99, Joshua. Here again, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the members of the commission that have consistently considered the issues that the residents have felt were very important. For those of you that have denied these proposals before because of the issues concerning, I thank you, and I appreciate the attention that you have given them. There are questions, the things such as the lot sizes, which did not even seem to fit the city's standards for lot sizes, and the roads that are inadequate, and to handle the additional traffic, which I do know now that the zoning commission denied the rezoning last year, but when it went to the city council, they passed it anyway. So I don't feel so bad that the city council doesn't seem to care what the citizens think, because they don't even really take consideration for the efforts you put in to making these decisions. if they're gonna override your decision. So, thank you for those of you who are working on this. I will say that none of the residents out in that area knew that this development was even happening until we got these notices about the approvals. The plat was already drawn. There was no input we could have. So we have no voice in what's happening to us. So everything we do is reactionary rather than proactionary. And I understand that a lot of effort has gone into this plat. A lot of money has been spent into this plat. But now it's kind of like, well, we put all this money into it, and we really don't want to throw it away. These are still my concerns: the overcrowded neighborhood, the noise, the traffic, possible crime and vandalism, drainage issues, and the loss of the actual beauty and flow. This is who I think is going to be happy from the whole project. It's the landowners who sold for a profit, the developers, the builders, the realtors, and the tax collectors, and a few new homeowners who are most likely escaping what was running for them somewhere else. I'll point out that the Joshua Highlands is 44 acres that's destined to have 143 homes on it. That's over 3 houses per acre. But right up the road at Shady Valley, I heard their proposal. They have 144 acres and they have 94 homes going on that. When I heard his proposal, I thought, you know, I can live with that. That's not bad. Every house has an acre to an acre and a half. And I would like to know, one of my questions is, who decided to pack Joshua Highlands like a Vienna sausage ham? Like, we don't care about the aesthetics, just get as many houses in there as you can. But, so this is my deal. Please, please remember that a community is much more than numbers and lines on a piece of paper. It is also hopes and dreams and feeling content with where you are. I'm here to plead that you reconsider the number of houses in this development. I know it's a big request. I'd like it to be half of the number of what it is, half of 143. But even if it was like 88 or 88, that would be 2 times, 2 houses per acre. That would be, I could accept that. Because I know what Joshua Meadows looks like. I know it's a very attractive area. I know some of the other subdivisions that have larger lots are very pretty. So just as a reminder, the Joshua Meadows website has a note in it that says, Joshua Meadows is a picturesque community of homes built on lots ranging from 3/4 to 1 full acre. So many new homes are built right on top of each other these days, but Joshua Meadows was built with space in mind. I just kind of wish we could just use that same principle when we consider the developments elsewhere. So my 3 questions were to do with who initiated the development? Was it the owner, the city, or the developer? Who decided how many homes would go on it? Why does it have to be so dense? I guess that's redundant, but anyway, thank you again for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Misty. Appreciate you coming up. Is it Gina Lewis? Okay. If you'll come on up. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
If you want to, would you want to speak?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, if you'll come to the podium.
If you don't mind, I didn't know if you were gonna answer her questions.
Oh, no, we, those we can't deliberate here, but I mean, you're more than welcome to contact Alice or anybody at the city and they can provide you the answers to those questions for that. Yes, ma'am. No, I appreciate that. And feel free to contact them. So.
And I might be completely redundant. I don't know, but I appreciate you saying everything you did and for thanking y'all for, I know at one point in time I was up here before and you did turn this down. So I don't understand how we got from that to this, but I just learned about this situation yesterday whenever I received a letter in the mail. And I live directly across the street And I think my concerns today are exactly the same concerns as they were the last time we had this. My number one concern is the roads. Number two are all the utilities, the runoff from the property, the sewers on with that many houses in one place. Is that, I don't know what type of utility are being prepared. Are they going back to the station in Mountain Valley? Or are we gonna have a new one? That sort of thing. Where are you gonna put it? But to me, the number one concern is the roads. You cannot put 300 additional cars on a road that 2 cars cannot pass side by side on without going into the ditch. I don't know. Do any of y'all live in that area? Do any of you know what that road looks like?
I've run down that road, yes.
I was gonna say, I mean, on everywhere you go, any direction, there are blind spots to turn onto another road. If you go down to 1022 to turn to go over to 917, there's a tree and grass that nobody even bothers to cut. You can't see, you have to get out in the middle of the road to turn. If you go down back to 1022 way on the S curve, it's a complete blind S curve, both directions. If you come up 909, people are driving around the curve from Eddy Avenue in the middle of the street. It's just a dangerous situation. People have already been killed on that road. And if you add 300 cars, 143 times 2, whatever, that's a lot of traffic on a little bitty road. I don't know if there's if there's a way to get from that to 917 in a different direction, something like that. I don't know what your plans are, but I just think, again, putting houses in their area, growth is inevitable. I have no issue with that. But I totally agree. I feel like it's just cramming houses into a little bitty spot in a place that is supposed to be a beautiful, we moved to the country to be in the country, not to be on top of each other. And I just feel like that's just ruining why people come to this town. That's all I'm saying. So thank you for hearing me out. I don't really have a question other than I just don't think that profit for one person means not for profit for lots of other people, because drainage situations are already, the rain runoff from the properties and stuff like that, there are already problems. And if we add more houses with no land to soak up the rain, where is that going to go? Not to mention everything, all the other ramifications of that. So I appreciate y'all taking your time to listen to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
I've just got a general question. Do I need to fill out one of those?
No, go ahead.
Has there been a traffic study done? I mean, besides putting that little monitor out at 3 PM and taking it before 5 o'clock like they did on Main Street?
It's listed with the amount of homes listed. It's not required for a traffic study.
Oh, it's not?
Has to have over 200 homes. And that's on the paperwork. That doesn't mean the city can't do that, but still.
Anybody to
Yeah.
drive down that road that does not live there, please.
Was there anybody else here tonight that want to speak in our open forum? Okay. I appreciate all the comments. I do appreciate y'all coming out and voicing your concerns. We do appreciate y'all representing the community and coming out to these events. We will move on to D, to discuss, consider, and possible action on approving a preliminary plat regarding 44.040 acre of land known as lots 1 through 11, block 1, lots 1 through 10, lot 11X, and lots 12 through 22, block 2, lots 1 through 16, block 3, lots 1 through 16, block 4, lots 1 through 14, block 5, lots 17, block 6, lots 1 through 15, block 7, lots 1 through 17, lot 18X, and lots 19 through 21, block 8, lot 1 through 3, lot 4X, lot 5 through 14, lot 15X, block 9, Joshua Highlands addition in the Eli N. Thompson survey, abstract number 827, County of Johnson, Texas, located in the north side of County Road 909 to allow for the construction of a residential subdivision. So just real quick, just a brief background. This was brought to us, was it last year, for a plan development rezoning case. A public hearing was sent out, notifying everybody within 200 feet of the requested change. That in question has been kind of where we're at tonight, is led up to the plan development, is where they did not specifically ask for a zoning for an R1 or an R2 zoning request. They asked for plan development and presented the city with what they wanted to do out there. It came before here, and a majority of the commissioners on this board denied the request. And it was sent to city council, and the plan development that was presented by the developer was approved by city council. So the plan development is what was submitted and done, that was approved. Part of state law, and we have our attorney presidency staff that can correct me if I misspeak here, but the preliminary plat is more or less, if it meets all the minimum requirements of plan development that was approved, unless specifically noted as what we kind of discussed in the work session, if there is an issue regarding anything that doesn't meet the plan development requirements, the plat, if it's submitted, meets the state law and city requirements, then there has to be a reason not to approve it. So there was some issues that were not presented last meeting, which is why we have our special meeting tonight. We went ahead and sent out the 200 foot request to let all the citizens know again, kind of what was going on, make sure we're very transparent in what was going on over these last couple of months. And that's where we are here tonight. So the discussion tonight is the plat that's presented to us, and based on the training provided by the city attorney, is where we're at. So in lieu of time and just in kind of speeding things along, going back to the plat itself, did anybody have any questions or concerns regarding what we see tonight? And we can bring up again, just for the record, if during, now that we're out of the work session, regarding to the comments that Commissioner Sears made regarding the lot sizes in regards to the building line and making sure that they meet the plan development requirements in the ordinance set forth by the city.
Do you want me to go through that again? For the,
Do we need to rehash all that, or is what we said in the work session okay?
I have notes for it.
I'd say, I think if that's gonna be, and I'll ask for a motion here in just a minute, if that, and with that motion, if that needs to be part of the request, then I would say that needs to be asked at that time before we vote on it, so.
I just want to say, I think Commissioner Gibson put it perfect. You know, we're following what was approved by city council, what they said is in this plan development district. We have to follow those guidelines and see whether or not they're in any way, shape, or form deviating from what's been approved by city council. So, and that's what we're here to do. So.
Go ahead, Mike.
Before any motion, I'd like to make just a quick comment, specifically to the ladies that so eloquently spoke and voiced their concerns. And you talked about, you made mention that you wanted your voice to be heard. And I know there's nobody up on that board. I sat on the P&Z board before I came to work here. And so I know that it weighs heavy when you've got citizens telling you what they want you to do. Unfortunately, in this case, your input has been hijacked by the state legislature, who has dictated that if it meets requirements, it has to be approved. And that's the problem we're in tonight. It's not their fault. They're following the law because it subjects the city to legal issues if we don't. And that's why we asked the attorney to be present to make some comments, to make sure that what we do, that we're meeting the guidelines of the law. And that's why this is such a struggle. I know it is for them. It is for all of us. But it's very difficult, not only this development, but any. If they meet the minimal requirements that are set forth, you're compelled to approve it. Unless you need something resolved, such as the stipulations that could be made here tonight. That's where we are. So
it doesn't matter where the public is, the people who live there.
In this specific instance, I mean, to be just blunt,
No.
that's correct. That has been hijacked by the legislature.
You just never let us know, because this way we've gone through a whole year of things and thinking we might have some help, and it's like.
Let me say something, okay? I don't think there's any any intent by anybody on the council, the board, or anything to not let you guys get informed. Okay, so it's very frustrating that you weren't personally invited or informed at the time when all of this started a year ago from planning and zoning and so forth there. That's when citizens really get to take charge and be able to get that information.
The public hearing notice.
Right.
Is when it
And
starts.
even before that, you posted on the website, all the meetings have, every single meeting is posted well in advance that you can flip through in about 5 minutes and see is Mike Street on there? Do I need to pay attention or not? Those are every single time. And so concerned citizens, there's some that do that on a routine basis. We've had them over the years, especially on the city council side, I can tell you that. And stuff that does occur. But it's one of those things that I don't want you guys to think that we don't listen. But in this particular instance, we really could have used probably even more input from more citizens back in the zoning days of this particular development. Correct.
Somebody could have let us know back then. That was
They,
If you're talking about.
the stuff is done.
days, By the time we came, it was done. The
The-
plan was made, the development was platted, and it's come like.
Well, we can, and I don't mean to cut you off, Ms. Steed, it's when the public notice is sent out to the 200 foot is what I was referring to, is anybody that's affected within 200 feet of this is given a public note, or excuse me, given a letter from the city saying of all the changes that are happening. And that happened, and I mean, well, I'm sure we can look up records to verify those were notified, that back in, whenever this public hearing was brought to our attention, that we had a list of everybody who was notified by mail and their addresses of, hey, you need to be here tonight because this is what's on the table. And then that's when your input is taken, because that's part of a plan development where we can discuss and say, well, hey, this does meet it. It does. These are some things we can
I was
do.
gonna say, we were in that where we were here for. That's the only two, I've gotten 2 letters, and that was the
That is
first
correct.
one.
And that is the
And
first,
I was here.
that is correct. And that is the first meeting when a majority of the commissioners on this board voted and turned that down.
That's right,
Correct.
exactly.
It went to the council, I believe, the following month. And the
That's
council's
one
made that
that
term.
we should have gone to that we didn't know about.
Correct.
If I'm correct, they only get a notice
For a public hearing.
for P and Z, but not if it's being brought to city council.
It wasn't a public hearing.
No, you did?
Well, I did, I'm squabbling about another.
Is that correct?
The notice, the notice you mail is just for P and Z, right? Yeah. The notice that's mailed out, to meet the legal requirements is for P and Z. The notice that I put in the paper covers the P and Z and city council.
Correct.
Even though it's only legally required for P and Z, but we try to cover both.
Correct.
But it also goes on our board and also on the city website.
But I think it's important to understand that, you know, most everything that we do here, it's going to go to city council, whether it's this month or the following month. So just because you're not gonna get a notice that it's going to city council. It's the process, so.
I didn't fill out a form, I just have a general question under your ordinances. And it's exhibit I subdivision ordinance, article 1 under general. I can read it for you. It's section 8, what is it called? Okay.
It's the Wi-Fi.
I have it here and I was looking at it, but it's 8. The general, section 10.1.1. And I can kind of tell you what it goes about traffic. And,
What ordinance are you referring to? What ordinance are you referring to?
pardon me?
What ordinance were you referring to? I missed that first one.
The subdivision.
Oh, subdivision. Okay, okay.
Exhibit I subdivision ordinance, article 1 under general. Section 10.1.1. But that, no, not that one, it's under 10.1.2, purpose and policy. Water, I'm just scared on. Y'all got some kind of.
I think at this point, unfortunately, we've got on the table a discussion.
I can pretty much read it. It's section A, pertaining to the street traffic regarding
and research on the development of the street.
Right.
Not so much on the plat, but conditions it's gonna cause.
The ingress, regress type.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's ordinance here. And I don't know where it disappeared, but point A is traffic. And it goes into details on here. I don't have it on this one. But it goes into details on traffic input, congestion, all that stuff.
Mhm.
And not just on the plat, but the congestion that's causing around. And it has to be looked at too. That's a city ordinance.
Well, I can't speak, I don't know that answer, Mr. But if I'm assuming that it should.
It was on mine.
Well, I mean, in regards to the preliminary plat, then these are things that are discussed by the city engineer as well as discussed, given that, and the city engineer goes through
It's
that.
all going to be approved under the city ordinances. It's not just regarding that plat, it's regarding the effect.
And that's part,
traffic,
and-
basically everything else.
yes, sir. And that should be part of the requirements for the plat to be approved.
Mhm.
And it has to meet those requirements, which have been reviewed by city staff. So that should have been one of the requirements reviewed by city staff.
Have they have a report on it?
Yes, our engineer has stated that a traffic impact analysis was not required per section 10.4.3 F.
Because it's under 200 homes.
Oh,
But,
under 200.
Yes, sir.
and I'll move on,
I
just
just see that board.
in lack of time, we do have a discussion. So if there's no other discussion regarding this preliminary plat here on the agenda tonight, then I will entertain a motion with the exceptions provided, or I'll entertain a motion, excuse me. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion, we approve with the standards set by Mr. Sears that the final plat
Show the building line,
shows the
lot size.
required, sizes there with the lot lines and widths
Can we put that on a separate exhibit, just so we don't
to clean it up, I'm sure.
submittal for review?
Just, yeah, yeah, I understand. Yes, I think.
I'd
that's fine.
appreciate that because I'm going cross-eyed, just
Yeah.
looking at as many numbers. and
It's
lines.
there already.
I'm afraid we had more numbers.
No, just a separate one with the lot line, with the, yeah. The
And
building
you
line,
you also want that conditioned with the city engineer's approval.
correct.
I do have a motion to approve. Have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second by Commissioner Jenkins. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, looks like it's unanimous. Thank you again for coming out of here. I know it's a learning curve and I know it's not what you want to hear, but again, I do appreciate y'all's input. We do. At that, we are adjourned at 7:22.